Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the CoinGeek Weekly live stream. I am your host, Mr. Kurt Wuckert Jr., rocking live from sunny South Florida. Of course, technical difficulties. Yes. So we have, thank you, Mr. Producer. I needed that. We, I had a little bit of an issue with the camera and other things. But we're now live. We're good. And our guest today is Darren Kellenschwiler, also known as Deggen, most often called Deggen by those of us who know and love him. So by all means, feel free to hop in, do the troll box thing, ask any questions you have. We're going to be talking about applications and what is going on in BSV space. We got a lot of people that want to talk about Terranode, and it's funny because very few of you should use Terranode at all, and you should be using all the other stuff. So we're going to be talking about all the other stuff, which is going to be good for all of us, I think. Headphones a little tweaky. All right. So we're going to add the Deggen. Yes, we're going to have the Deggen on the show, everybody. If you could like, subscribe, and hit the alert bell, it would make my life infinitely easier. So please do that. And also patronize our sponsors, which include Rock Wallet. If you go to rockwallet.com, you can learn all about the most non-custodial wallet that you can possibly use in the entire ecosystem that also gives you custodial access to a simple exchange tool, allowing you to be an expert level trader on your phone between BTC, BCH, BSV, Ethereum, various Ethereum stablecoins, and the money stablecoin MNEE. Get it? It's spelled like money, even though it's not spelled like the English word money. Isn't that delightful? Seriously, though, Rock Wallet is really good. We use it in our business at Gorilla Pool. I'm not just shilling it because they pay for the show. I'm an actual customer, and it has been mostly delightful. But they have problems just like everybody else. And I'm sure Deggen's going to have a whole bunch of other wallets that he wants to talk about too, because that's the world that he lives and breathes in. And so I actually want to learn myself why I should be using things like MetaNet Desktop or any of the other things that are going on in the space. So you should also check out my pinned post on X. I posted an article about how to make BSV actually take off. There's a picture of someone who looks sort of like me dragging a golden dragon into a battlefield, because that's how we that's how we have to treat it. We need to be doing the real work to get real stuff done. You also may notice I have a bruise on my lip. I was not punched in the face by my wife at the house. I am not an abuse victim. I was, however, kneed in the lip by my wife yesterday at jiu-jitsu. And you should see the inside of my lip. It's super swollen and very unpleasant. It is what it is. This is the life of being a jiu-jitsu couple. So this show is entirely brought to you by Americans. We have an American producer, an American guest, and an American host. So for all of you Ameriphiles, is that the word for it? For those of us who love the United States, today is a show for you. Please share this around. We would love to get the troll box filled with questions about all the important stuff going on in the ecosystem. And Deggen is one of those guys that can answer your BSVA questions. He can answer your technical questions. He can answer some application questions. So it's a really good opportunity to do all of that. So we are going to take a momentary breather. I'm going to sip a little bit of water. Oh, I have a hurt finger. That's what this is all about. More jiu-jitsu stuff. But yeah, I'm going to take a little breaky. We're going to play a little ad, and we'll be back in like 30 seconds. See you in a minute. Deggen, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing really well, thanks. Yeah.
I'm glad to see you're advocating for things in your background image. Also, there we go. BRC 100 people, interoperability between the wallets. It was good to see you in London, by the way.
Yeah, likewise. It's always a pleasure to see you in person and
yes, sir.
In a relaxed environment.
Yeah.
It's good fun.
No, absolutely. And actually, I really appreciate you going down the rabbit hole with me on our CoinGeek interview. We worked
Yeah,
in,
nice.
we're playing some games with some people.
We have
Those
fun.
interviews
We
should
have
be
some
out
fun.
soon. So, actually, let's start with BRC 100. There's actually confusion about it naturally
There
because
is.
we have decided to take a name that is used in the BTC ecosystem for something totally unrelated.
I did
And
not know that. I'll be honest with you. I did not know.
yeah, but let's get into it. What's the high level on BRC 100? Why does it matter?
Look, so it's an interface between wallets and the applications. Really, as an application developer, it means you don't have to care how wallets work exactly. You don't have to be a cryptographer. You don't have to worry about the custodianship of the assets. You can just kind of run some methods, and you don't have to care how they work under the hood. So it's designed to kind of make life easier for developers.
Can you contrast that to, say, something historically? Is this, relative to something like BIP39 or whatever? And then maybe relative to other wallets in the space. A lot of people have based their wallets on like Bread Wallet and or Electrum. Like what are some things that we're getting or moving away from and moving toward with BRC 100 as a contrast?
I would say it's analogous, like in the mining space, it's analogous to Stratum. So it's the protocol which so you're speaking Stratum to your hashers. And that's not my world. I don't know a lot about that, but I know that that's the sort of protocol you use to, how would you say it? Orchestrate to your hashing machines and produce.
It's a good word. Orchestrate is the word. Yeah.
Yeah. To run the orchestra. It's kind of like that, but for applications. So I guess one of the mistakes people keep making is that it's thinking that it's something to do with wallets talking to wallets. It's not really. It's not really like Paymail, for example, to contrast it with that. Paymail was all about wallets speaking with other wallets, or like different hosts speaking to each other. Not really about that either. So we're talking about on the same device communication. So the way that you have like a browser and you have the browser extension, so like Yours Wallet or something. So it's the language that the extension speaks to the web app, or the web app speaks to the extension. Sure. Both of those languages are defined in BRC 100.
Lovely. What is the white flag? U2U DIP, whatever. What's going on? That I don't know. I actually have no idea where that's going.
Yes, my strategy is working. So I recently had a conversation with, I think, Liz from the sort of marketing and education team in BSVA. And I guess I've just it's very slowly, like over 3 years, realized that SPV is not a very good term because BTC boys think that means Merkleized blocks and Bloom filters.
Yes. And,
most of the BSV crowd think of that as, verification with light client and things like that, because we had an era where we were talking in that language.
Yep.
And so I realized that there were also several definitions in the BRC repo defining SPV as to do different things or slightly different things.
Yeah.
So this is after speaking to a gentleman this morning who is more focused on UX. Vincent, you may know him.
Oh, indeed, love Vincent. Yeah.
So he was talking to me about how to make. I was trying to come up with the term sort of direct payments to replace SPV, simplified payment verification, because again, most people get that wrong as well. It doesn't matter that much, but so U2U is user to user.
Okay.
DIP, I like because it means direct instant payments, but it also means like dip, right? So as in you pay for something and then you dip. So
fair enough.
I like it for that reason as well. So U2U dip is all about how people should be using this peer-to-peer electronic cash system. You should be using U2U dip.
Imagine that.
Anyway, so I'm floating this new language out there intentionally to see what people will think of this conceptually. Does that make it easier to understand what we're doing here? Maybe not.
It's a little bit reminds me a little bit of the bits versus sats versus what millibits, and some of the, or duros is one of the other things that has been
been trying to make up new language for years. Let's see if
yes.
this sticks. Yeah, buy the dip. That's good.
So are we just talking about U dip? Does something need to be defined, like from a protocol standpoint, as to, or is it just SPV from a functional standpoint, but we're trying to rename it for the sake of clarity?
That exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess the BSV brand of SPV specifically. So what does it mean? It means you and I pass each other transactions. We pass each other the proof that transaction is included in the longest chain of headers, and we check that against our independent source of headers. That's it. And if it's not confirmed, then we check the parent's existence within the longest chain of headers for each of the inputs. So it's trying to say all that in a short.
Sure. No, that's good. I think
maybe just dip.
Yeah, dip could be good. I think clarity on that, because again, like SPV means at least 3 or 4 things to multiple groups of people, and half of them think that it's just a some legendary ghost that never actually existed, and then and including in BSV, I think people will say, oh yeah, it's an SPV wallet, and they'll talk about things that are clearly not SPV wallets, like they connect to a full node and kind of do the full indexing thing or whatever. These are our Rock Wallet, CentB, whatever, sort of work that way. Speaking of wallets, Yours wallet, which I have sort of a tangential connection to, the OneSat team and the Yours team all are all a little bit under the Gorilla Pool umbrella. We all kind of work together, although I'm not on like the technical side of any of the stuff with Yours. But what does it look like, from an SPV or a dip, U dip standpoint? If you move to like BRC 100 as a basic standard, does that include the necessary things to be an SPV wallet, or is that yet a further step that needs to be integrated to get something like that done?
It's further but compatible. So I would say that BRC 100 gives the application developers the tools needed to easily implement dip. What I mean by that is, just to get rid of all the acronyms and everything, is there's 2 methods in BRC 100: create action and internalize action. And the idea there is that really that is the formation of some sort of transaction between 2 parties. And then there is no definition in BRC 100 of like how that gets to the other party. You can email it to them. You can send it to them in a text message. You can transfer using a message box. You can use whatever method you want to get it to them. Even QR codes, animated QR codes, for example.
Yep.
And then you internalize on the other side.
Cool.
So BRC 100 defines those methods and what the arguments need to be, which makes it really easy to then just use any, I guess, medium to get that message to the other party.
Cool. So it's funny because we could do a whole show on like SPV and why everyone should go that direction or whatever. And I think one of the major problems we have is, we don't have a lot of very simple wallets for people to use. I think people want choice, and then relative to things like in the Solana ecosystem, where like you download a wallet and it's like, oh wow, I've just joined the future or whatever. You get the opposite, where it's like, is this working? Is this on? Am I here yet? Like, have I joined the MetaNet? And there's been some really good attempts at doing that well. But then there's also just, kind of the people, I'll talk about Rock Wallet again because they're a sponsor, but it's just a simple wallet. It doesn't do anything that, Exodus wallet didn't do a decade ago. Right. And it's fine. Like, that's not a problem, but it's also not like, oh wow, BSV, so I think we talk a lot about why something is special, and then you don't necessarily have access to the special stuff with the wallet that you've been recommended. And so you need to then have sometimes 3 or 4 wallets to participate in the BSV ecosystem, like on your browser, in your browser, then on your mobile. Like your mobile wallet isn't necessarily connected to your, all this stuff. So you kind of have this like smattering of things. First of all, what wallets should we be aware of that perhaps we're not? I know some of the stuff that like was developed in Ty's sandbox and has now become official or semi-official. Maybe you can talk about some of that, please.
Yeah, so the BRC 100 standard was put forward by Ty, and the wallet, which is now called BSV Desktop, it has been released open source, and it is available for people to fork and build their own, which Babbage have, and they have their own version of a BRC 100 wallet.
Got it.
I believe another company, Binary, it's based here in Austin, also forked the repo and have their own version of that wallet. I don't know if they've released yet, so I'm just
unofficial,
unofficially aware of that. I know that Rock Wallet engineers have been talking to me a lot about how BRC 100 works. Like I'm not involved in Rock Wallet directly. I just speak to them and support them in answering questions. So my hope is that they will also adopt it. Apparently Ty has been speaking to Handcash. My hope is they will also adopt it. We're in conversation with respect to yours going in that direction. So the hope is this becomes the standard interface between applications and wallets, which means that users have a choice of wallets and application developers can just focus on building their app and not worry about which wallet it supports, because if they just stick to the BRC 100 interface, it works with any of them. That's the idea.
Oh, that's great. Well, it's especially great when you see, I get people that tag me in apps all the time. Hey, Kurt, can you check out my app? Check, this and that. And I'm like, yeah, I'll take a look at it. But then if it doesn't connect to a wallet that I'm currently using, I'm a little bit like, okay, how much time do I want to spend? Do I want to create a taxable event, sending BSV to this new wallet to do this new thing? Right. So I guess my question is, given your position, your role at BSVA, you're talking about like application level stuff, which actually is the cool stuff. I think everybody thinks Terranode is the cool stuff, and it is. Like, I don't want to denigrate the Terranode people or thing at all, but it's also not the thing that almost anybody should be. Like, nobody wants to go on tour at their local like AT&T hub, right? And be like, oh, this is what goes on in this gray building in the middle of town. Not to mention
some people do. But it's very special people that want that tour.
Correct. Also that'd be bad for the NSA agents that are working in those buildings. But in reality, we're used to using the internet through a browser, either on our phone or on our computer, and like, so everybody lives in the application layer, and so that's the stuff that you're focused on, and I think is actually the stuff that the 99% are actually going to care about. So where would you recommend starting? Do you want to start with BSV Desktop and like try to live there, try to make that like the center of your BSV home? Maybe.
I mean, it's a good place to start. Sure. I would say that's probably more for developers, to be honest. I would actually go for one of the commercially available options. So whether that's Babbage's or Binaries or anyone else who runs them, just pick your favorite. They have slightly different interfaces. They're going to diverge. They're probably all roughly the same now. They're all going to slowly diverge. Some will be supporting. Well, I don't know what they'll do. It's not up to me. But that's the direction I'd go, because you want to have some party that's accountable, and you should know that there's no vendor lock-in, right? So anything you do in the BRC 100 based world, you can move those funds to separate providers later if you decide to, and that includes yourself, right? So you can have a local version of this data on your own laptop, and you can, you have independence that way, but then you don't get the benefit of cloud backup. So like, just for the average user, I would go to one of those suppliers and just sign up with their services, because they're going to keep you right if you lose your keys or whatever, which is bound to happen at some point at the most inconvenient time. So I would go with that option if I was just an average user. If you're an engineer, developer, I would go for the open source version, because it means you can experiment. You can build out the whatever features you want to see in the wallet itself. You can build out. And also, it gives you a little bit more access into like debugging your own app, because there may be issues with the open source components, and then you can raise that issue and get it fixed, and it's on your own watch, and you can propose pull requests and so on. So that might be a good option for devs.
Interesting. So my article today that I published CoinGeek.com is me very deliberately saying, hey, are you a dev or an engineer or an infrastructure person? Because Terranode is now open source, various wallets. We've got the SDKs. We've got hey, we could use lots of people putting lots of eyes on this. So if you're, oriented toward those things, I think it would be a good thing to have a fresh 3, 5 dozen, 500 people actually auditing code and looking at these sorts of systems, and creating things like middleware or implementations of overlay networks or some of these things. Can we talk a little bit about that kind of thing? Sort of everything from like the developer kit all the way up to, say, overlay networks and application level stuff.
Sure.
Like, how much work is there to be done in there, and what opportunities might exist for devs that have experience with some of these things?
Yeah, well, first thing I'd like to say is if you're one of those guys who built like a distributed application or a decentralized application, a DApp, in the past and then ran into problems, you can probably come back now and build it, and you will have no problems anymore. Because effectively what Terranode does is just remove the scale ceiling. So you can now go as hard and fast as you want. And because there's no vendor lock-in, you're not going to have like a money button collapse, which killed off a lot of our development ecosystem. That can't happen again, because you can run your own infrastructure even if there's no one else that wants to run it. But in terms of keeping me on your actual question, may need to rephrase it just to jog my memory.
Basically, what opportunities are? There's lots of things
opportunities
built.
Yes, thank you. Okay, got it. So yes, there's the SDK, and that's pretty mature now, right? So the TypeScript SDK, the Go SDK is being integrated into Terranode. So that's going to be very mature. Like, that's going to be really heavily scrutinized. TypeScript SDK is on version 1.8.8, I think now, or 8.10 even. It's gone through a lot of work. There's been an external audit being done, and things are being added fairly frequently. Features expanded, optimizations. It's really pretty mature. Where there's opportunity for working on infrastructure components is definitely the overlays. So that, from my perspective, is still very new. The wallet toolbox as well, I think, is still fairly new. Certainly in Go is like brand new. But there are commercial teams now interested in adopting those things, and therefore scrutinizing and making future requests and requiring much more professional levels of scrutiny. So this is great, right? So we went through a bunch of iterations where we tried to solve this problem. Nobody cared. We tried to solve it a different way. Nobody cared. This third time, people actually started caring and like, oh, I think we actually got it right this time. People are interested. Fantastic. I'll admit having got it wrong a few times, but now we're getting actual pull requests to these repos from people that are not being paid by us, which is wonderful, because then it's a genuine interest. So there's lots of room to be done there. And for example, in overlays, we have the University of Zurich, our PhD students looking into the economics of overlay systems in general.
Nice.
What problems does that raise if you have these distributed nodes within an overlay service? That each have maybe different opinions on which transactions are the valid ones, and so on. And how do you solve? Does it break the economics of the distributed system to have fees being paid to individual overlays, or maybe being paid to the quorum of overlay operators? Like, what are the different economic models you can use there? And I think there's been much more research done in other blockchains on that front. So that's why we're dipping into the sort of university people, because they're pretty agnostic to which blockchain they focus on. Hopefully there'll be some insights there, and that can help development on those fronts.
I had an ETH developer reach out to me yesterday, and a pretty significant one too. And we're casually friends, and he was like, "Hey, I was going through Terranode docs. It's really interesting to see, and he said, I made a proposal to the ETH something like 6 years ago or something to kind of go this direction with Ethereum node infrastructure." And he's like, it got some interest, but nobody really wanted to dig in and work on it. And so he's looking at our stuff and being like, cool, somebody's going this direction. And so like gears are turning on that kind of thing, even from people who would otherwise not be particularly interested in what we're up to. But yeah, I'd like
6 years ago, it was that CryptoKitties era, maybe.
Yeah, probably. It was probably in response to it. Like, hey, how do we make this thing scale? I like ETH and, maybe have made a lot of money with it and don't want to see it die because, can't handle volume. But yeah, I'm curious, do you get that kind of like inbound request from people who you're surprised to hear from? Or has it mostly been, sort of Bitcoin or maybe even just BSV people? But I'd be curious to see if like Bitcoin cashers and other stuff want to, hey, don't tell anybody I'm here, but I'm kind of interested.
Hey, that's an interesting story. Not personally, I must admit, I don't have any of those kind of anecdotes to tell. I wonder if that's because you're flagged as well in many lists. So
yes.
But yeah, I guess I don't hear from a lot of that crowd day to day, or maybe they just don't tell me because, of course, I answer questions from devs. But my assumption is that they're sort of already familiar with BSV, or at least if they're either familiar with BSV or just like have no idea and are not crypto guys, and they're just being asked by their boss to engineer something. That's more typical conversation for me, to be honest.
Well, that's actually more exciting, I think. Without doxing who you're talking to specifically, are we talking about people in like big logistics, IoT, healthcare? Like what kind of people are reaching out to you for stuff?
So it's usually let's just say like government type contracts that want data integrity or accounting solutions. That's the typical. It's typically data integrity stuff rather than tokenization. Tokenization, I haven't had a lot of conversations about tokenization in a while from businesses. That's not true. No, there is one. There is one that's talking about like coupons for something as well. So yeah, there's a bit of a mix.
Interesting. It's good. All of that's exciting. People consistently ask me like, Kurt, who's out there, waiting for scalable this and that, like as if I'm going to know like all the biz dev conversations that are happening in places. But you may have.
They're out there. Yeah, they're absolutely. Yeah. And they're kind of, I don't want to come across like I'm pretending they exist when they don't. I also don't want to necessarily name specific businesses because that's their business, private conversations. Right. But yeah, like in odd places that you'd never think is like a real industry. There's just like, they just have a problem to solve. And somebody does that. And that's their full-time job, solving that one problem kind of thing. Like that's really funny. Well at a large scale. And I guess like previously it was just unrealistic to expect those companies to come to us because there'd been a few tests. It was obvious that, actually the infrastructure isn't quite ready for 1 million transactions per second.
Yeah.
As well, but now we have that promise of like, hey, there's not going to be a limit. It's basically what does your software do? Because ours is going to be fine.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a block party in my neighborhood last Saturday. I think it was Saturday, and new neighbor, and she works at an insurance company that's very specifically in a weird segment of the automotive industry where it's insurance policies on the service contracts for leased cars. And it's one of the biggest companies in Florida. And she said, she's like, we've been looking to acquire a company that tokenizes these policies on the blockchain because they want to use this technology, but they don't want to build it themselves. And they don't want to buy some cruddy startup. They want a company that is already doing like various types of title transfer essentially as tokens. Because, she was like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I work in the blockchain industry. And she's like, oh, do you? Because actually, so she had like this whole thing, like, do you know anybody doing this, very specific thing? I was like, well, no, not really. But,
it's really interesting. It's usually real estate, but fractionalization and tokenization of a fractional asset.
It was a really interesting. Well, it was a really interesting thing too, because it's like I was like, well, wait, lease agreement? She's like, no, not the lease agreement itself. It was literally the insurance policy for leased cars for their service contracts. And I was just like, the financialization of things is ridiculous. And then to think of a company that is just doing that specific thing with blockchain,
Spot on. That's like, exactly the type of company that's actually using this stuff. Yeah,
right.
It's like obscure, like they genuinely have just marginal advantage if they just use blockchain to solve the same problem.
Yeah,
they just gotta, that's what it's about, really, finding that niche.
It was interesting. So if anybody's out there and you want to create a startup to sell to a very large Florida company, build the startup, season it for a few months, and reach out. Maybe I'll have an acquisition opportunity for you.
One of our interns, Kirtan, put together a fractionalized tokenization platform proof of concept. So that is available at BSV-blockchain-demos / fractionalization. Just search fractionalization on that org and you'll find it.
Yeah, very cool. So actually that leads me to one of the questions I wanted to hit up is like, where should people be going to learn about what's out there, like templates for things, like that kind of thing? Like, I know there's a few websites. I'd like there to be a definitive list published somewhere. So where can we start?
Something Vincent told me today is we need landing pages.
Yes,
I think
big time.
He was spot on. We do not have landing pages for this stuff, but I guess that's not fair. We do have a team that's working on basically bundling this stuff together. I guess we just don't have typically sort of designed funnel landing pages, which is maybe what we should have. So we have a registry. If you go to hub.bsvblockchain.org, you can go across and there's a tab there that says demos and onboarding. And that's probably the best way to get started these days. So hub.bsvblockchain.org. Head there, and there's just like a mountain of resources. Check out some of the demos, download BSV Desktop so you can click around. These days, you don't need a service provider. Our legal team made sure of that. So you've got local storage first.
Yeah.
So you are your own backup. You are your own service provider. So you're really screwed if your laptop goes on fire. But you can sort of select backups from there. So that's where I'd start.
So then after BSV Desktop, like what would you recommend for let's say I want to tokenize some weird financial asset and create a business on that? Like what would be the next thing that I should look at in order to go that direction?
So the landing page, fast.brc.network, fast.brc.dev. The first example is create a token. And it just gives you a basic example of how you would go about that. So the code is this long on the screen. It's super simple. You kind of have to define really just like a namespace for where you want to store your tokens within the user's wallet. And the good thing being you don't have to run any of the wallet stuff, because you can just anticipate that the users have the wallet on their side. So your app code can just be like, hey, wallet, create this token, and it just sort of magically happens.
Cool.
As long as user has a wallet that uses that BRC100 interface. So
Very
any
cool.
of them will work.
Nice.
So yeah, once you get there, it's one of those things where when you say token, you could equivalently say box. I want a box. Well, what do you want the box to be? How big do you want it to be? Is it going to be a really long, skinny box, or a big fat box, or something that's equilateral? You could make any box you like. So when it comes to speccing out how to craft a token, maybe an easy class to use would be push drop, which all that means is it has some data in it, but it's non-functional. So you push some data on and then you drop it, and then you do whatever you want after that. So getting into the nitty gritty, you can set up script templates of your own, which define your own locking conditions as well. So you can have data and locking. And that is the fundamental building block for a token system. Thereafter, it's just a case of, what details are important. So like, is this going to be an NFT? Is this going to be something that's fractional or fungible? if you're going for something fungible, it makes a lot of sense to just use BSV21, standard BRC21, BSV21.
BSV21,
Yeah. Even I'm getting confused.
Yeah.
So one set ordinals, in other words, like it makes a lot of sense to use that, especially if you're doing fungible, because of course we've got the overlay tools now that help you kind of keep a subset of transactions in this distributed system. So I know you guys are running one of those BSV21 overlays. It makes it super easy for anyone to get started in launching their own tokens.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, so let's move away from tokens just a little bit. What if somebody wanted to build like an on-chain website, or they want to have a some kind of persistent data storage, or just store a hash, like an event hasher or something? Is that the kind of thing that would already be defined, or would that need more engineering?
It is, but it's one of those things that once we get into the overlay land, because it's still kind of fresh, I feel like what we've tried to do is present one option of how you could do things. But I'm certainly aware that your team and Mint Blue comes to mind as well.
Yeah.
A couple of other teams have come up with their own types of overlays that solve a problem specific to the businesses they're serving. So it's not like there's one solution for overlays and that's it. It's just that we didn't want to leave that undefined, so that if you don't know what to do, there's at least one option for you, well-defined, that exists in the ecosystem that you can make use of. So that system is could be characterized by the terms ship and slap. The idea that you have these tokens that kind of work like DNS, pointing you towards other hosts that are storing a subset of transactions relevant to a given topic. And you kind of you get to define a topic, and then you can run an overlay that specifically manages tokens within that topic. And then you can make that public, and other people can run it and earn revenue from that as well. So it's just one way to do it. And we've got some examples. If you go to BSV, github.com/bsv-blockchain/overlay-express-examples. Link in the comments of this X post. I'll follow up later and
Sounds good. So maybe let's talk a little bit about the acronyms, ship and slap, for example, but also things like beef. Excuse me, beef. As like a standard. I had lamb for lunch, so but
should have called it ruminant.
Yeah, but talking about things like beef as like a sort of pseudo standard transaction style versus actually, let's talk specifically about beef for a second, because one of my favorite things about BSV fundamentally was that there was no such thing as a standard transaction, which allowed a lot of flexibility for some time. But then moving away from that, I think just for the sake of like scalability and some of these other things, like a little more predictability in transaction format. Can you walk me through like what is beef? Why is beef? And also, like, what other options are there? Is beef our only option for building a transaction?
I suppose not. No. So just to be clear, for the past 16 years, there has been a standard way to encode any Bitcoin transaction on all of the forks. It's all the same. At the low level, it's all the same. So raw TX is how you would call that. I think that's defined in BRC 14 or something like that. Some low number of BRC defines it if you want to look it up. But basically, it's just the binary encoding of what a transaction looks like. So the version number, the number of inputs, the inputs themselves, the number of outputs, and the outputs themselves. That's raw TX. So Siggy and Simon Ordish came along with extended format, EF. And what that did was it added a bunch of bytes after the version number to kind of offset things so that it's extended format before you read it otherwise. And then it just added some stuff to every input saying, this was the previous locking script. So now you can run script evaluation. So you can include the previous locking script and the previous Satoshis that you're spending. So that was really smart because it just removed one lookup when validating transactions. If you give the transaction validator that, it has all the information it needs to tell you whether or not that's a valid transaction for the most part. There's some caveats, but for the most part. So it was an optimization thing that's built into Terranode now. So Terranode internally passes around extended format quite sensibly. And so I took that idea slightly further, and there were those that came before me that were doing similar attempts to solve the same problem here. But basically, the problem with extended format is you have a locking script and script value, but you have no way to tell independently that those are actually legit. So you have a TX ID, so the previous transaction's pointer, but you don't have the whole transaction data that locking script comes from.
Okay.
And the only way to validate that would be to have the whole transaction, and then you hash it. And it should be the TX ID that you've got in your input. And if it is, then it's the same data.
Yeah.
So beef was background evaluation extended format. So that just means that you're able to actually verify yourself that the locking script of the inputs is correct. And the only way to do that is to have the whole TX. And if you have the whole TX, you might as well check the Merkle path to see if it's
Why
really
not?
it. Yeah. You might as well.
Okay. Yeah.
That's it. So if you have the most recent transaction in a beef structure, you don't need the input transactions because you probably have a Merkle path pointing to the current one. But if you're making a new transaction in the moment and then immediately passing beef to the counterparty, you probably don't have a Merkle path for the most recent transaction. So that's why you include the parents to prove that they are from real blocks and they can do the rest of the validation themselves. So it's just giving the counterparty the ability to validate everything you're telling them about this transaction before they accept your payment. That's what beef is.
Okay. Are there other things like beef in that they are an acronym for BSV style transactions? I hear lots of acronyms get thrown around, some of which I know and some that I don't. Are there other things like that we should be aware of?
This beef V1, which is what I described. Beef V2 also allows the passing of a known TX ID. So if we're passing money back and forth, and I know that a previous transaction, I'm not going to give you the transaction again. I'm just going to tell you the TX ID saying I know you already know this. So there's a little flag that says known TX ID. It reduces the amount of data I need to send you. So that's beef V2 includes that. And beef V3, I know is something Tone wants to propose. I think he's drafting it. That would include recent headers as well. Imagine that there's some potentially offline system or something, and it doesn't matter where you get your headers because you're independently verifying them anyway because it's a chain hash thing. So that's beef V3. There was DPP a couple of years ago, and you and I spoke about that on this podcast, I'm sure. So that's Direct Payment Protocol. That has largely been dropped as far as I can tell. There was one or two implementations. I don't see it getting used across many wallets. It was just an attempt to solve the same problem. It's a bit of a quirky format. Nobody really liked the JSON hierarchical structure. There was the Everett envelope, which was Ty's proposal.
Imagine that, yeah.
And that's pretty close to what beef is, just in a JSON wrapper.
Okay.
All sorts of stuff like that. Yeah, so people have been trying to solve this problem. Oh, Dean Little had one. He called it extended EX format, EXTX, I think. And what he did was just put the Merkle path after the raw transaction data. And he said that this is great because normal parsers will just see the transaction and stop. And then if you add the functionality to check Merkle paths, you can just parse the rest of the data. So anyway, that was his motivation.
Yeah.
So there's...
Sure.
That's all of them. That's the history of extended format.
I could see Dean saying it's great because Dean is great. And therefore...
Yes. Yes, and this was years before anyone else realized it was even a problem, of course. So.
Right. Which is, often the case with him. Like, Dean, what the hell are you talking about? And then 5 years later, oh. It's funny.
Got it.
So what else? As we got about 10 minutes left in the show. And I will ask you to stay after for a few minutes so we can talk offline. But also, we do a special for our friends at Rad TV. So there's the uncensored version of the show, which we do about 10 minutes. Separate.
Throw the hat off.
I'll unbutton my last button But I'm curious what else might, again, for maybe your interested dev, but also your person that's maybe not technically oriented, but they want to be doing something in BSV. Like, what
Yeah.
else should they know about, and where can they do something?
Hey, that's a great point. So one of the things that you should do, okay, you download BSV desktop, you got it running, you get a few sats in there, fantastic. Now what? So the main thing is the apps page, and at the top there's a button that says View App Catalog. You can also get this by going to metanetapps.com, I think, metanetapps.com. Yeah. So that's the discovery mechanism for new applications. Oh, and I see one that is fairly new. Metanet microblog is a new one. So
Wait.
This is a cool story, actually. Someone was posting, oh man, it literally took me 2 days to set this up. Development in BSV is so much easier these days. So that was a fantastic thing to see someone post. But generally speaking, that's a good place to grab the latest Metanet type apps. So there's a couple there, examples of things you can do, like games and payment mechanisms that aren't built into the wallet themselves. So that's a good place to look.
Cool. So maybe a little bit of an outside conversation, but a lot of people have adopted Claude Code, and so now you get vibe coders that are adding to the shuffle. But I'm curious, at what point does it make sense? And I'm asking because Gorilla Pool is developing something like this, but I'm curious if other people are too. An MCP server that helps manage agents and these kind of things to then speed up that dev process even more than simply using Claude Code, because Claude may make all kinds of assumptions. Wouldn't it be great if there was a server that was pre-programmed with things like the Go SDK and the TypeScript SDK and all these various wallet protocols and all these other things, and it was sort of building in those specific swim lanes? So is that a conversation anybody has had, or have I just inspired such a conversation to be had?
So you have to speak to Jake Jones about that, because he's well, everyone's into AI these days, but Jake Jones has been going down several rabbit holes, if you will.
Delightful.
Developing our own internal tooling for that sort of thing. So he's got a couple of Claude agents defined, which you can install at BSV/agents, I think, or /Claude or something like that. You can install them. And that will give you the basics, mostly on the TypeScript stack. We got to do the same thing on the Go components as well. And he has defined some service that I'm going to completely destroy trying to explain. So I won't. You should speak to Jake about that, because he's been working away on that sort of thing. So cool. Definitely, that's going to be.
How is Jake? I haven't talked to Jake. It's going to be 18 months since I've even said hello to Jake.
You should open the box and see what he says.
What are you working on, buddy?
It's cool. AI tool integration is what he's been working on.
Awesome.
But he keeps his head down. So you should get him to talk about it. It's pretty cool.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I think actually I see Mr. Bose saying it here in the comments. Like, how do you create secure apps with vibe coding? Because I think that's the real problem, right? Is you do a bunch of cool things, your app seems to work, but it's like, we stored your private keys in plain text, just because, and like that's the kind of thing that no competent dev would do. But if you're fundamentally an incompetent dev with a good business idea and you vibe code it out, there could be silly things like that you wouldn't know to check for. Like,
you just got to make sure it's make no mistakes. Add that little suffix to your prompt, and
there you go.
I think Claude will get you sorted. No, in all seriousness, that is part of the design decision, or my understanding of why this BRC 100 interface is so critical. Because you can vibe code things with BRC 100. You tell it the interface. It's basically just one giant file, actually, the wallet interface is defined in. If you point Claude to that, it will know what is available to it in terms of methods. And as an application developer, you don't touch any wallet codes. You can't put the private key in plain text accidentally. Just won't do it. Private key is on the user's device. You're just saying, hey, can you sign this? And the user gets to decide whether or not they want to sign it based on their own permissions management, which is done by the wallet. So I wouldn't vibe code the actual wallet, or at least if you use AI tools to help you structure that code, then I would have it independently verified. If you're forking and doing your own stuff there, I would get it security reviewed, definitely.
Sure.
But for app development stuff is usually the same thing. You want to sign something, you want to create new transactions, you want to create token outputs, and you want to spend token outputs. Maybe you want to encrypt and decrypt stuff. All of that stuff is just handled in the abstract from the app side. So you're just telling the app, encrypt this, decrypt this, and it never touches any of the actual low-level primitives. That's all done in the wallet.
Excellent.
Perfect for app coding.
Crucial. Yeah. No, really good advice. And I think that's probably the best answer is, the scary stuff. Let a, commercial application do the scary stuff. Yes. Any other, final thoughts on this? Nuggets of, if there was one thing that they remember from this interview or whatever that you want people to know?
BRC 100, use it. And also, I guess this thing, right? So this is the thing we're advocating for: user-to-user interactions, direct, instant payments. That's the takeaway from this.
Excellent. Deggen, where can we follow you, learn from you? How should we contact you? What kind of things should we contact you for, actually? I think the best question is what things should be filtered to other people versus what should come specifically to you?
Hey, that's a great question. What do I want to deal with on a day-to-day basis? So my colleagues do an awfully good job of helping me protect my time these days. But honestly, whenever I'm taking a lunch break or going for a walk, I take a look at X. So X is the place to get me. And hence Deggen, right? Get me at Deggen on X is the best place to ask questions. I don't think my DMs are open anymore. I get too much spam. I'm also on Telegram at Deggen. You can hit me up there. Start with a BSV related question, or I'll assume you're a hooker or something.
Telegram's pretty sketchy. I love when I see somebody that I haven't thought of in a long time, but I have their phone number saved, and it's like, this person just joined Telegram. Like, I wonder if they're buying drugs. So
I know exactly what you mean.
So, Deggen, it's always a pleasure. Good to have you back on the show. I would love to maybe make this like quarterly or like a set biannual or something like that, just to keep everybody's up
I'll
to
be
date.
coming to you next time because we got the mobile stuff launching soon. TM. Nice. So I'll hit you up when that's ready to go.
Sweet. No, that's great. I'd love to debut more stuff on the show here. So very cool. All right. Thanks for your time. Please hang out in the green room and we'll reconvene.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kurt.
Thanks. Bye-bye. All right, everybody. And that was Darren Kellenschwiler, who I think I say his name correctly now, but took me a number of years to get that right. So I'm doing my best over here. I appreciate more than anything the people that are building in the BSV space, and you, the people who watch, the people who want to participate in the culture to learn why it matters and where they can learn more, or how they can learn just enough to make the world a better place by doing anything with this technology, which is again what my article is about. You should click and read my article. It is my pinned post on X, where I explain some of the ways that you can contribute if you are like a serious infrastructure guy, or if you have any business experience, or if you're just a regular person, because I really need lots of people to be involved in this. The way that anything takes off is that your visionaries set the vision, and I think we've done that. And then your technical people kind of work out the kinks, and we've got a good 7 years of working out kinks, and I think we've solved most of that. The beauty of this is going to be when your business-oriented people, your application people, your entrepreneurs, and then regular people all start to see the real value, and it becomes the thing that just goes absolutely bonkers fractal in how things take off and then ultimately change the world. You need lots of people involved in order to actually change the world and leave our little niche, which I will miss when it's gone, by the way. But ultimately, that's the way progress goes, right? You got to grow the empire, and then ultimately start having people that you don't know involved in your little sandbox as it becomes everything. So, everybody, it's been a pleasure. Truly, I do the show for you. I'm really glad to have your viewership and your likes, your subscriptions, and your like, subscribe, and those of you who have hit the alert bell, really, it's a good thing. So everybody, be good to each other, because if we can't be good to each other, then the rest of it probably doesn't matter at all. Anyways, I'm Kurt Wuckert Jr. This has been the CoinGeek Weekly live stream. It has been my absolute pleasure, and I will see you next week. Goodbye.